Today we will be starting a more math-based lesson, and this Unit 7 is going to be all about statistics. Okay, so statistics is a type of math. What are statistics specifically? They are calculations from a set of data. Okay, so like this table down here is an example of data. All right, so data is values along with content, or I'll say numbers. Oh, sorry, not content, context. All right, so for instance, if you look at this table below, we have a purchase order and the name of individuals who made a purchase, what state and country they made the purchase from, how much it was, an area code. So these are all a bunch of numbers in the context of shipping information or shopping information, something you're buying, okay? So it's not just like a list of numbers, but it's a list of numbers that has a meaning behind them. Okay, so when we talk about the context of data, we talk about the W's, okay? When you're looking at data, it is useless without context. So when we're talking about the W's and context, we're talking about who, what, where, when, why, and how. Okay, so being in the COVID-19 pandemic, there's been a lot of statistical data about positive cases and positivity rates. This is all data that's given to us with context so that we can run a statistical analysis on it. Okay, so when we're referring to who, there's a couple more definitions we need to talk about. So when we say the cases, that's the individuals for which we collect the data on. All right, so if we look at the blue table above again, individuals shopping at this particular store would be the cases. All right, the sample, or sometimes called the sample size, are the cases selected to represent a larger population. So example, if you give a survey to 50 students at Cary Grove High School about whether or not they like the cafeteria food, that is a sample of the population. You did not ask every single student at Cary Grove High School how they feel about the lunch in the cafeteria. You selected a smaller portion of the students, which was 50. Okay, the population would be the group that we want to understand. Okay, so we selected 50 students and we are going to make a judgment on whether or not students like cafeteria food based on that sample to make a judgment on the entire population, which is all the students in Cary Grove High School. Okay, so let's see if we can figure out the population and the sample of this example. So it says the marketing company JD Power and Associates surveys consumers to learn about buyer behavior and customer satisfaction for many products worldwide. For example, JD Power's automotive performance, execution, and layout studies examine what people like about their car's performance and design. J.D. Power based the 2013 appeal report on responses for over 83,000 people who had recently purchased new or leased cars. Okay, so describe the population. This is all the people that we want to get the opinion from. Okay, so if we're talking about cars here, our population is going to be all people who can drive. All right, so anybody who's over 16. Now, if we were to take this, we would not be able to find every single person in the United States, for instance, who was a driver. That would be impossible to survey. So we take a sample of that population, and their sample was 83,000 people who recently purchased or leased cars. All right, so by taking a survey of a smaller population, we can then make an educated guess on how the whole population feels about that. Okay. Let's try another one. Are physically fit people less likely to die from cancer? Suppose an article in a sports medicine journal reported results from a study that followed 27,736 men aged 30 to 89 for 10 years. The most physically fit men had 52% lower risk of death from cancer than the least fit group. Okay, so think about it for a second. What is the population of interest? All right, well, if we look at it, we are looking specifically at men who are adults. So our population is all adult men. So then what would our sample population be? Again, we're not going to be able to survey every single adult man in the world. So what was the sample in this study? So they sampled 27,736 men from the age of 30 to 89. Okay, so that's how we determine population and sample size. Now we have a few more definitions here, and this would be our what and our why. So variables. I know a lot of time when we think of variables and the different math classes that you've taken already, a variable is like the X in an equation, okay? Here, variables are characteristics recorded about each individual. Okay, there are two different kinds of variables. Okay, a quantitative variable is measurable. With units. Okay, and that's super important. So something like 16 inches, inches is your units. 58 degrees, degrees is your units, okay? But then we can also have a categorical variable, and that's a variable that's is a name, category, or label. Okay, so let's see an example here. State whether the following variable is categorical or quantitative. Okay, your favorite color. If my favorite color is purple, that is a category and it does not have units. So that would be categorical. Hourly wage. So if I make $10 per hour, dollars would be my units. So therefore that would be quantitative. The length of my patio, let's say my patio is 10 feet long. Feet is my units, therefore that would be quantitative. And then my zip code, 60013 is the zip code in Cary. There is no units there, that's just a number, so therefore that is categorical. Okay, example 4. Identify the variables and tell whether each should be treated as categorical or quantitative. Because of the difficulty of weighing a dolphin in the ocean, researchers caught and measured 33 dolphins, recording their weight, fin lengths, and sex. They hoped to find a way to estimate their weight from the other, more easily determined quantities. Okay, so what is being measured here? So we're measuring the weight. This is our what. We are finding the fin length, the body length, and the sex of the dolphin. All right, and now we have to determine whether these are categorical or quantitative. Okay, so what do you think? Let's try for the weight. Is that categorical or quantitative? That would be quantitative because weight would be in pounds or kilometers if you're overseas. What about the fin length? That would also be quantitative because they're probably doing that in inches or feet or centimeters. What about the body length? That would also be quantitative because that would also be measured in units of inches, centimeters, feet. And then the last one, what kind of variable is the sex of the dolphin? That would be categorical, right? Either male or female with no unit with that. Okay, so we've done our what and why. We have done our who. Now we have to do our when, how, and where. Okay, now, not every study has all of these. But they should be noted when available. All right, so you may not be able to always find the where, when, and how in a study, but if they do have them, you do want to make sure that that is part of your information that you're putting in the study because it's very important. Okay, so now we're going to take this example and we're going to try to find our who, what, where, when, and how. All right, in 2004 Tour de France, Lance Armstrong made history by winning the race for an unprecedented 6th time. In 2005, he became the only 7-time winner and set a new record for the fastest average speed, 41.65 kilometers per hour. A cancer survivor, Armstrong became an international celebrity, but it was all too good to be true. In 2012, following revelations of doping, the International Cycling Union stripped Armstrong of all his titles and records and banned him from the professional cycling for life. Okay, so let's start with who. Now, this particular study is looking at our Tour de France winners. Okay, where would be France, right? It's the Tour de France. When Well, looking at the dates throughout this, it looks like our first piece of information was in 1999 until 2014. Why? Well, the purpose of this was to show the results of doping in a competition. Okay, how did they do this? Well, they gathered data from competitions. Right, and I saved what for last, because it's usually a pretty long one. So we are looking first at the years, right? And that is going to be quantitative data. Okay, we're looking at winners, which is categorical data. We're looking at what country they're from, which is also categorical. We're looking at the time, which is quantitative, right? Because that's in minutes and seconds. We're looking at speed, which is quantitative, right? Kilometers per second or per hour. We are looking at distance, right? How far they are riding the bike, which is going to be quantitative. And then we're looking at the riders, right? Who's riding the bicycles? And that's quantitative because we're looking at the number of bicycle riders, okay? So we kind of already did this piece right here with our what. And I probably should have showed this earlier, but you could see it on your paper. This is where I got all this information up here, okay? Where I was looking at the years from 1999 to 2014. I'm looking at the winners, okay? What country they came from, their time, their speed, their stages, their distance, and then the number of riders starting and the number of riders finishing. Okay, so this is how you can identify the different types of data and things that you need to look for when you're doing a statistical study.